I refused to invite my dad to my wedding, but the reason will school you. My father has severe social anxiety and panic attacks in crowds, and I knew forcing him to attend would turn what should be a celebration into his personal nightmare, so I planned something better. Dad had been struggling with anxiety disorders since his military service ended 20 years ago. Large gatherings, loud noises, and being the center of attention would trigger panic attacks that left him shaking and unable to breathe. Family events had always been difficult for him. He'd either skip them entirely or leave early when the anxiety became overwhelming. I'd watched him suffer through birthday parties and graduations, trying to be supportive but clearly miserable. When I got engaged, everyone assumed Dad would walk me down the aisle at our 200-person wedding, but I knew putting him in front of that many people would be cruel, not loving. Dad tried to convince me he could handle it. He said he'd take medication and power through because it was my special day, but I could see the fear in his eyes when he talked about the ceremony. Instead of forcing Dad to endure something that would traumatize him, I made a different choice. I planned a private ceremony for just me, my fiancé, and my parents in our backyard 2 weeks before the big wedding. Dad was confused when I told him about the private ceremony. But what about all your guests? He asked. I explained that the big wedding was a party, but this small ceremony would be our real wedding. The morning of our private ceremony, Dad was calm and relaxed. He wore his best suit and walked me down our garden path to where my fiancé was waiting under my mom's rose arbor. With just the 4 of us present, Dad was able to give a beautiful speech about watching me grow up and how proud he was of the woman I'd become. There were no panic attacks, just tears of joy. We took photos, shared cake that my mom had made, and spent the afternoon talking and laughing. Dad was present and engaged in a way that never would have been possible at a large event. 2 weeks later, we had our big celebration with all our friends and extended family. I walked down the aisle with my mom, and when people asked where my father was, I simply said he couldn't attend. Some relatives were judgmental, saying Dad should have sucked it up for my wedding day. They didn't understand that real love means protecting people from situations that harm them, not forcing them to suffer for tradition. The beautiful irony was that by not inviting Dad to the big wedding, I got to have the most meaningful father-daughter moments of my life during our private ceremony. He was fully present instead of fighting anxiety. Years later, Dad still talks about our backyard wedding as one of the best days of his life. He says knowing I understood his struggles and chose his well-being over social expectations made him feel truly loved. People assume I excluded my father from my wedding, but actually I included him in the most important way possible by creating a space where he could be his authentic self without fear or shame. My wedding photos from the private ceremony show Dad's genuine smile and relaxed posture. The big wedding photos would have captured his anxiety and discomfort instead of his joy. I learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is reject expectations and traditions that would hurt the people you care about. Real inclusion means making space for people's needs, not forcing conformity. Dad walked me down the aisle in our garden, gave me away with tears of happiness, and celebrated our marriage without a single moment of panic. That's worth more than any traditional wedding ceremony. Sometimes protecting someone's mental health is more important than satisfying other people's ideas about how events should look.